Terrible.
Here we go.
Excellent. Zoom the share. So let me go back to the beginning. And I think we have more people here now. So let me welcome to our first virtual Empowering Women Together on our second start. We were going to do a great topic of your inner critic, but we just couldn't do it in person, so we're postponing it to another time. So I've had people ask me lots of questions, and I got a lot of suggestions from you guys about various things they'd like to know about. So today, we've got, in the spirit of empowering women together, we have 10 topics or questions to cover today. And it is a lot about me, and I do apologize for that, but you've got me today. So we do have everybody muted. Feel free to type any questions into the chat box only, please. Don't unmute yourself. Karen is monitoring, and she will be your voice. And if we can, depending on how many people we have, we may be able to unmute. We are recording this, and we will put it up on robbiehardy.com. So without further ado, here we go. I probably should put this in that mode. That would be nice, wouldn't it? First of all, people have asked me, why did I start Empowering Women Together? And, you know, I've been passionate about helping women with self-confidence and self-esteem, and getting women to share their successes and their failures. Actually, the first version, topic we covered in August of 2019 when we started Empowering Women was failures, flops, and fumbles. And obviously, bringing like-minded women together is always a passion, and it's kind of a non-network network. I think if you think about how it works every month, people get together, and the panelists, a lot of them haven't met each other, so they meet each other, and then a lot of the attendees don't know each other, and then they meet each other, and then the attendees and the panelists and the moderator meet each other. So it's this non-network network, and some great relationships have been founded here, which is really what it's all about. Someone wanted to know about the history. I did the very first panel of 10 women in 2003 in Wilmington, North Carolina, when we were trying to do some work down there to stimulate entrepreneurship. We had a panel that disbanded. I got this crazy idea that we should do a panel on 10 secrets to a successful startup. And I got 10 women from the Research Triangle Park to go down to Wilmington, and we gave this great panel on the 10 secrets to success. And it was, you know, very highly attended, because it's unusual, particularly in 2003, to see 10 women across the front of the room. And the first question that mostly the men in the room who were in there asked, why were we all dressed in black? So that was a little disheartening that they weren't taking us seriously. At dinner that night, after a few glasses of wine, we decided we would come back the 2004, and we would do a panel on what we know now that we wished we'd known last year, and we all wore pink. So this does have a history that's kind of fun. And I've done it in other places that I have lived around the country or I have worked, when I've been asked to do something sort of interesting and unique. The other reason is that I think it's really important to help women deliver a distilled message in the lessons they've earned or in the work they're doing. We tend to talk too much. We tend to spend time justifying why we have this opinion or this answer. And I want women to get comfortable, you know, putting a message across with fewer words, but with more meaning. And I think it's helpful. And it's, as the panelists can tell you, it's not easy. It's very difficult to do that, but I think it's an important lesson. It's almost like your elevator pitch, only less. And of course, the other reason is that I'm a big believer in paying it forward. And so I like to stimulate that, and having women invest in themselves. And it doesn't have to be money, it's time, and time is money. So that's kind of the basis of how Empowering Women began, and it's where we are now, and what the future is going to be. We will evolve as life throws us forward. So that's number one. Only 9 more to go. Several of you have asked about Excel Ventures. There's been a lot of press, and you're probably all sick of it, but let me tell you just a little bit more about it. You probably know this, but women are the majority of the population and the majority of the electorate. and the majority of the workforce, and we are not a special interest group. Most people may not disagree. And women are only receiving 2.2%, or now it's 2.3% or whatever, of angel and venture funding. And part of the reason for that is that people invest and surround themselves with people who look like them. I've been an angel investor since 1995, and I've spent the most of my career being the only woman in the room. And it's, you get to used to that. I mean, you begin to think that's normal. And I thought that was normal for a long part of my career because I didn't know any better, which is kind of funny now that you think about it, but that's the way it was. And so while we can be angry at men for not investing in women, we need more women investors to be able to change that, those numbers. And so we started Excel Ventures to meet that need. So Excel is the first early stage angel network of all women to invest in women in North Carolina. I invited early in 2019, like January of 2019, I invited 25 women to come together to see if this was a good idea. I had tried to do it in 2000, and I think I was naive. I think who knows all the reasons why, hindsight's 2020, but I had 6 women, and it was a time when, people were writing things in the back of a napkin and looking for money. And so we opened it up to men, and we had 75 men and 6 women. And the fund was very successful, but it wasn't what I had planned. So 19 years later, I finally got back to it. I had always been, from that, in those 19 years, I had spent time, looking to see what all the different, women angel groups and venture capitalists and everything. And I learned a lot along the way. And so bringing women together who have done it before alongside those who have not. We can't increase the number of women who invest in women if we don't increase the number of angel investors. So that's a really, really important element for how this has come together. So there's probably lots more. Let me just tell you one other thing about Excel. I mean, when we launched this, as I told you, I sent the email out to 25 women, 14 stayed with me, and we took 2019 to put it together and launched it at the end of 2019. And when we did, the press releases were picked up by everywhere. And I was contacted by people from all over the world, Milan and Paris and Dubai, saying, let's do deals together. And I'm like, yeah, I'll come to you. So, it's been fun to see all the energy and ideas behind it. And, will there be an Excel other places? Probably, but we are a startup. So we're trying to focus and, do what I tell all startups to do, focus, focus, focus. So we're getting this right, and we will, take it elsewhere when we're ready. Okay, question number 3. People have asked me to talk about, why do I care? What's the whole thing about empowering women? Why am I passionate about it? What does it really mean? And, back in the day, before some of you were born, we had secretaries, and, you took a job and you were assigned a secretary in a conference room in an office. It's back when all you did was go to meetings. You didn't really do anything. And I had this amazing young woman who was my secretary. And as I got to know her a little better, I thought, wow, she is really smart. She's smarter than I am. She should have my job. And one thing led to another, and I started helping her, or I thought I was helping her, and pushed her and told her that I would always have her back, but I thought she could be more than what she was doing. She had no self-confidence, no self-esteem. She didn't think she was worthy. And so from that experience, by pushing her, and she helped me and I helped her, and she went on to be this fabulous executive. And I was hooked, because for me, I learned a lot. She learned a lot, and to watch a person blossom like that was pretty awesome. So I've always had a few women that I've been trying to mentor or help throughout my career, everywhere I go. And so I've always been committed to helping women, you know, with their self-confidence and self-esteem. And I always decide, you know, I always wanted to do something big, something that would have a far reach to it. And because I come from the software industry, I look at things differently. I look at things as, you know, how do we leverage this? How can we do it once and, you know, have it repeat itself? Well, in this case, it's pretty hard because it's really, you know, it is that one-to-one thing that happens. So was always on my mind to do something big. And then life got in the way of doing anything to scale. I kept mentoring a few women at a time and speaking and doing that kind of thing, but I never really, you know, got there. So then in 2016, I was living in Napa, California, and I was kind of taking a pause. And I thought, well, maybe if I write a book, that will help satisfy this itch in me. So I wrote Upsetting the Table, Women Mentoring Women, to, you know, help women know that they belong at the table. And I went around and did a lot of speaking and all that. And that was great. It's just, it felt very remote for me. I think a lot of people enjoyed the book and got a lot out of it, but it wasn't, you know, really feeding my soul. So fast forward to 2019, and now we have Empowering Women Together and Excel Ventures. And I actually have a three-legged stool. And the third leg of that stool is to increase the number of women angel investors. Because as I said before, I really, truly believe that we can't improve money's going to women until we have more women investors. And women aren't like men. I mean, we all know that, but, you know, in various ways. But one is that they're more risk averse and they want to understand what they're doing before they jump in the pool. They want to make sure there's enough water in there that they're not going to kill themselves. And so helping women understand what it is that it takes to invest, and that sort of no experience is required. So in Excel, we try to have one new person and one experienced person kind of joining at the same time so we can build that up. And you know, it's go slower, but it's also filling that need. So the third leg of the stool is, you know, coming up with a way that we can deliver materials to women that they can digest about what does it mean to be an angel investor, so they can make an informed decision about that versus, you know, some women will just jump on because somebody else did, and that's great. But then to know that it's safe, and yes, it's risky because you have to be an accredited investor to do that. And if you want to know what an accredited investor is, there's an SEC definition out there. And it's basically, you know, you have 200,000 as an individual or 300,000 as a couple in income. You have a net worth of a certain amount. That's a very rough translation. So don't take that to the bank. Look it up if you're interested. So I am passionate about empowering women. I'm at that point in my career where that's what I'm doing. And I'm enjoying it. And having been the only woman in the room for so long, it's amazing now that I find myself surrounded by women. And first it was a little awkward. And now, of course, I love it. And it's just so great to see at Empowering Women and Excel Venture meetings, seeing all these women talking to each other and supporting each other and raising their hands and standing up and standing tall and all that. So that's a long answer to why I do what I do. So I get asked this all the time. You know, I hate networking. Is it really worth it? I hate networking too. I mean, I can tell you, I can't count the number of times I sat in my car when I needed to go inside to an event and I thought, I don't want to do that. I don't want to go shake hands. I don't want to go smile. I don't want to make small talk. I don't want to do this. And who would know? Because I'm in the car by myself. Does anybody really know I'm coming? Anyway, I always went in. The closest I came to not going is when I moved back to North Carolina in 2017. I went to an event and they had a parking situation lined up. And so they told you where to park. And so I thought, I don't want to do this event. I won't know anybody. I've been gone 10 years, blah, blah, blah. So I thought, I'll just leave. And I looked up, I was looking at my phone at the time. I looked up and the guy that had, put me in the space was still standing there. And then of course they were stacking cars around me. So I was literally stuck. So I had to get out of my car and go in. And it turned out to be a great event and it was a great thing. So it is hard, but it's really, really worth it because making connections is what it's all about. I mean, it's what happens at empowering at these events is you meet people and they may know somebody who knows somebody, or maybe you can help each other. There's all kinds of things can happen if you make genuine connections, and maybe you even make friends. And I think, and it's a case of, empowering women, that we have a whole tribe. But it's not without the fact that you used to say you had to shake a lot of hands. Now you have to bump a lot of elbows, talk to a lot of people, drink a lot of really crappy wine, or not, avoid it. And, and it's really worth it. One of the things is that if you go in thinking about what do I get out of this, I think you could be disappointed. I think you go into these events thinking, who can I meet? What can I learn? Because networking is really a circle. It's a circle of what goes around comes around. And I help you, you help me. You never know who you're going to meet or who they might introduce you to. And I can tell you, it's one of the best people watching experiences. When you're feeling shy, you can go, stand somewhere and just observe. And you learn lots of things just by watching what happens in networking events. Some of it's positive, some of it's negative, but it's certainly a great learning experience. So yes, networking is worth all the trouble and stress. And I think empowering women is easy networking. So we need to do more of that type. Okay, so people always ask me this. Tell me something we don't know about you. So here goes. I was a newlywed. I had just moved from Boston, Massachusetts to Chapel Hill, North Carolina with my now ex-husband. And he was in graduate school. And we lived out, obviously, because we couldn't afford to live in. And we hadn't even been there a week. And I was in our apartment trying to figure out looking for jobs and that type of thing. And a man knocked on our door. And of course, back then you answered it. Didn't think anything of it. And he said, someone told me that you might be looking for a job. And of course I was. And he said he came from Storybook Farms, which was a actual farm, and a preschool across the street from our apartment. And he said, we have an urgent need. School starts in 2 days and we need a preschool teacher and a bus driver. I was like, what? But I needed a job. And so I said yes, and I went and learned how to drive this bus. It was, back in the day, it was this awesome Mercedes school bus. Obviously, it was a wealthy farm. And so I would drive around not knowing where I was going, with no GPS, picking up children and delivering them. They all lived. I didn't kill anybody, but I had no idea what I was doing. I did love kids and learned to still love the kids and hate the parents. But that's just, I think everybody can say that. So that was how I started. And obviously it didn't pay very well. And so in the afternoon and evenings, I got a job as doing statistical analysis at UNC. Now talk about not knowing anything about what I was doing. And just so you know, that was in the early days of SAS. Long before the big SAS was in Cary, it was still coming out of NC State. And that's what I used to do statistical analysis. So I just kept saying yes when opportunities came before me. The opportunity for this job to do the statistical analysis was from a parent that I met from the Storybook Farms experience, who was a professor at UNC, who needed help. He assumed I had some brains that I have no idea why, and he introduced me. I took the job, and it introduced me to the software industry, where I have spent the rest of my career. So I just kept saying yes, and in this case, it was completely out of necessity because I was the breadwinner in the family, and I didn't have a job, and I don't know what I was thinking. We were very young, and we drove from Boston to North Carolina. My husband has started graduate school, and I was to be the breadwinner. And so most people don't know about that. So now all of you do. You probably all each have interesting stories like that. So I also get asked this a lot. If I could do something over again, what would it be? And I would get my college degree. I don't have one. I have enough coursework for a PhD. I've taken lots and lots of courses, but I never knit it together into a degree. You know, the good news and the bad news is that I was so busy saying yes that I never put it all together. And I will tell you that it got in my way on occasion. And it was a secret. It was something I felt no one could know, because they, you know, it's I'm an imposter because I don't have a degree, and I have these jobs and I'm doing all this stuff, but I don't have a degree, so I'm not worthy, quote. And it's always been there. And you know, it's never really left me. I mean, for me to say this out loud is pretty unusual, but I think it's time. And so while I've been very successful, I do feel like it's a hole that needs filling, but I don't need to go get a degree. I think filling the hole for me now is by saying, I don't have a degree. I was very successful. I did take lots of courses. I did do lots of things, but when people needed to see, you know, what I had, what was my resume, it was a missing piece that I wished wasn't there. So now you have it.
Hey, Robbie.
Yeah.
We got a couple questions in chat.
Okay, tell me.
So Farnoosh says, why would you say the degree is still on your mind? I hear that sometimes, but I'm curious about the why behind that desire, Robbie. And then she also wrote credibility or perception of credibility, I would say, right?
Well, yeah, it's, you know, until you have that hole, so to speak. So every time, even today, when I have to give my resume, excuse me, I don't have a degree. And so now, of course, I don't put anything, you know, I just give them, you know, because I'm older, so I have a lot of different experiences. But when people ask, could you fill in the education piece? You know, you still get asked that, even at my age. And so, you know, you don't know what to do there. And so it's not that I think I would have done better, although I know that there are boards I could not serve on because I didn't have a degree. So it did get in my way for things that I wanted to do. Not very often. I mean, I just moved on and went around and did something else, but it definitely got there. So, I mean, I just completed something the other day for someone, and they said, well, you didn't put your education in, and I just ignored it. So that's the honest answer.
And then Kimberly just commented, experience is so much more. It is sometimes a roadblock for a lot of us. So great for you.
Yeah, I mean, I agree completely. But, you know, there are people and there are places that, you know, the degree is more valuable than experience, or you don't know how to, you know, you want to, you know, say, I went to the school, you know, I'm a graduate of the School of Hard Knocks or whatever it was called. But, you know, that's what it is. Are we good?
You're good.
All right. So other than believing I didn't need my degree, which I never really did think that, I just kept saying yes. Because my career has been that kind of way. One opportunity has led to another, which is a good thing, because needing to put together a jazzy resume, you know, was never really that important. I mean, obviously I had to have one, but I was somehow falling into things that allowed me to, you know, take a deep breath and say yes. I can tell you that almost every job I took, I didn't have experience. You know, I faked it till I made it is certainly one of them. And I figured I could figure it out. So, you know, you get good at, you know, sort of during the day, or on the front line, acting like you know what you're doing and madly studying and researching. And of course, this was before the days of, you know, Google and the internet and everything. So you really did have to sort of play the game. But, you know, I just felt, and I don't know where it came from, that I just needed to say yes. And sometimes it was out of, you know, I needed to make more money, or I wanted to make the next step. I was in a job that sucked and I wanted to do something else. So I just did that. So I think that for me, that is important. And I think for a lot of people, it's, you know, saying yes, not to things that are going to diminish you, or somebody's going to take power over you or whatever, but saying yes to things that are scary, and take a deep breath, something you know in your gut you really want to do and you're afraid to do it, but you know you'd be good at it, and you just say yes. The other key when you do something like that is you hire people who are smarter than you, who have more experience than you. And so that shores it up. You figure out what your strengths are and what your weaknesses are, and then you hire around yourself. And then the other thing that I can't stress strongly enough is I was very fortunate to have some amazing, amazing teams. And I really believe in teams, and I believe in collaboration. And I believe at the end of the day, it's only one, you know, one person makes the decision. I'm not talking about group groping, but I do think building strong teams that have each other's back, that understand what the vision and goal of the company is and of everything that we're doing. And so it's, that's kind of my three things. I could go on and on about this, but I think those are the core pieces.
All right, Jack just commented, women empowering women seems to be finally rising in importance. Many of us are creating businesses and platforms to facilitate this. Collaboration over competition is my mantra. What do you think of this concept?
I believe collaboration over competition is very important. However, at the end of the day, you know, if you're running a company and I'm running a company and we have the same product, we're going to compete. We might, it's nice when you can try to collaborate and see if together you make a bigger whole. But at the end of the day, sometimes competition has to happen. But I think collaboration should always come first. Because back in my day, you know, suddenly there was another woman at the table and I'm like, who is she? Let me kick her ass out of here. And so that was very bad, but that's the way it was. I mean, women did not support women, and maybe that's why I'm so passionate about it. And I mean, I figured it out pretty quickly that that was the wrong thing to do, but I agree with you, Jack. I think that collaboration should come first.
And Kimberly just wanted to say, thanks for your transparency.
You're very welcome.
LOL at the end of that one.
I'm sorry, what? Yeah. You know, if people who know me sort of know this, what you see is what you get. So
right. Farnoosh just wrote in, I remember feeling that way and how other women felt that way about each other in the super male dominated world of Cisco Tech support, but I regret that we weren't more supportive of each other.
I totally agree. I mean, there were only so many seats at the table, so to speak, and you wanted your seat. And you know, we were used to competing with men also, and it was very different to compete with women, and we didn't know how to support each other. But I think, Farnoosh, we figured it out, and we all figured it out. But it's taken quite a long time. The nice thing is that these next generations of women have come along sort of seeing how that is a great way to be successful.
Good.
Okay. So I've been asked this a lot also. So this was awesome. I had developed a program called A Million Dreams Across America. And we were delivering it here in the Triangle as a start, actually at the Keenan Flagler Business School. They were partnering with us because it was in 2007, 2008 when, you know, the financial markets collapsed and the auto industry collapsed and everything collapsed. And what really collapsed for me is I had a sponsor for A Million Dreams Across America called Wachovia. And suddenly Wachovia became Wells Fargo. And Wells Fargo said, and who are you? No, we're not going to sponsor you. So that's the way things go. So I went and worked with the Kauffman Foundation, which is the largest entrepreneurial foundation in the world. It's about $2.5 billion. And they are in Kansas City, Missouri. And they had heard about A Million Dreams Across America. And they asked me if I would help them try to reignite entrepreneurship in Detroit and Charlotte, interestingly enough. And they actually had more people to help in the Charlotte world, and I wasn't kind of the Charlotte world anyway. So I went as a strategic consultant to Detroit to help bring entrepreneurship back to kind of where it all began. And I will admit, my first trip to Detroit, I was very nervous. When I was in the back of a car that picked me up from the airport, took me into the city, and I was like, I had never been to Detroit. And I was going to a new incubator to meet people, and it was just amazing. The physical damage over the years in Detroit was just something to behold, and the poverty and all that. However, as you got into this near the colleges and where this program was, there's just a lot of energy. And so I worked with all these people in this incubator and with the Ford Foundation and the Kresge Foundation and all this big money that's there. And we took the program A Million Dreams Across America and retooled it, and we delivered it in Detroit for 2 years. And I have to say, I fell in love with Detroit. I was no longer afraid. It all got a bad rap for no reason. Obviously, you have to be careful where you go, just like in any city. And I met the most amazing people, and I got to work with so many amazing people. And when we put on a program, I mean, we'd have 3,000 people show up on a Saturday to do a weekend program. It was, obviously they had to register, et cetera, but the volume of people that would come and the things we were able to do was just pretty awesome. And, they had hope, and they had all lost their jobs, and they couldn't pay their rent or their mortgage, and they were trying to reinvent themselves. And, but they came, if they didn't come with hope, if they walked in on Saturday morning, dejected, they left Saturday afternoon or Sunday afternoon feeling pretty excited and feeling like there was hope. And it worked out for some, and obviously didn't work for others. But it was a really phenomenal experience that, I'll never duplicate again. And so it was great. On the other hand, working with foundations is kind of like watching paint dry. So for me, it was, and they didn't know what to do with me, because I'm like, let's do this. We're going to do it now. And so, together we figured it out. So that was my, I've done a lot of things, but that was the most interesting and fulfilling job that I ever had. And it also helped me learn how that, coaching and mentoring entrepreneurs really fed my soul. So I learned a lot about myself and a lot about a lot of other people. Are we good?
We're good.
Okay. All right, we're on number 9. We're crashing through here. People ask me this all the time. And I think what really, for me, and I think for all of us, overcoming the need to be a pleaser and be polite they get in our way. And, we all talk about this all the time. We teach our boys to be bold and brave, and we teach our girls to be, pleasant and polite. And the need to please really, really, really gets in your way, because it's hard to believe in yourself and what you're doing while you're trying to please someone else. It doesn't mean you can't do that. It doesn't mean it's not possible, but it does mean that, you tend to give up the better part of yourself. while you are spending time pleasing others. The other thing that I tell everybody, and every woman that I've ever talked to about or coached or done anything, is saying, I want women to learn how to stand tall and own the room until it's what you do by nature. And I'm not talking about good posture. I should be talking about good posture, but I'm not. I mean, even if you have to go in the bathroom and look at the mirror and talk to yourself and saying, I can do this, I'm good, or whatever it takes, and roll your shoulders back and take a deep breath and then go in there and own the room. And I don't mean be rude or nasty, but just walk in like you belong, even if you don't, because suddenly you will. I used to say you go in and you stick your hand out and shake it and introduce yourself to somebody. Now you stick your elbow out and you introduce yourself to someone and look them in the eye. I mean, men do this by second nature. And women, it goes back to this pleasing bit, and self-confidence and self-esteem is that, you know, do we really belong? Are we really worthy? Are we really enough? And to me, this very simple act, do it in your car. I still do it today. There are times when, I mean, I don't want to go in. I am nervous or I'm not comfortable. And so in my car or wherever I happen to be, usually it's in the bathroom, you just have that little mantra to yourself and you go for it. And I think the other piece, and it goes back to what Farnoosh was saying, and we were talking about how we didn't used to be nice to each other as women, you know, being kind is just not hard. And, you know, we talk about having a seat at the table, and if the table's not big enough, build a bigger table and invite others to join you, because what goes around comes around. And what Jack said about collaboration versus competition, I mean, together we are so much stronger, and particularly right now, it's so important. So those are that's my takeaway on what I think is the most important things. Pretty simple.
And Jack says that you can be polite and not a people pleaser. I don't think that they are mutually exclusive.
Well, you can be polite. And I guess what I mean by polite is sort of, I should probably say it's more like being subservient a little bit. Being so polite that you lose yourself. Yes, politeness has too many definitions, and Jack, you're right. I shouldn't use it that broadly, because you can be polite and not be a people pleaser. I totally agree. I try to be polite most of the time, not always, but yeah. Thank you.
And then Farnoosh was just adding a little humor. I was super nice in the end. I resigned from Cisco and let the other woman have more room.
Good girl. How generous of you. You got
Jack,
out of that.
Yeah, Jack said it's all good.
Good.
All right, we're good.
All right. Here we are. I've had lots of questions. What do we do now? I mean, this is a hard time, and it's only going to get harder. And, you know, this is a time when, you know, great companies are often born. And I think this is part of my saying, always saying yes. I think you need to look for opportunities, not problems, because problems can become opportunities, and it's hard. I'm not saying it's easy, but there is a mindset. And if you're in the midst of, you have an idea, you think there's something you want to do as an entrepreneur, but you think you should wait till things get better, actually you should just go for it, particularly now when the time you have may be more, not less, but maybe money's tight. But when money's tight, you're more agile. You're more, you find a way to leverage things more. I mean, you know, entrepreneurs, I mean, I bootstrapped my first company, and I can tell you that I came from the corporate world where everything was handed to me on a platter. And risk was, you know, only about losing your job, not about not being able to make payroll. And, you know, when I started my first company, had rented some space, and I was in an office, and for whatever reason, there was a medicine cabinet on the wall. Obviously, it was a bathroom, or somebody who was in there before was weird. I don't know. Anyway, and on the floor underneath the medicine cabinet was a trash can. And I stood there and I thought, I think I'll take this office because I want to put the programmers, you know, where they have more light, blah, blah, blah. And I looked in the mirror, I looked at the trash can and I thought, wonder who's going to take out the trash. And then I looked and I stood up and there I was. And I thought, well, you are. And so it was a lesson I've never forgotten. And I found myself, I had to bootstrap it. I couldn't afford not to. And it allowed me to be innovative. I couldn't throw money at the problem. And I think that's what happens in tough times like this, when money and resources are scarce, that people find other ways to do something. And so it is, and I think the positive mindset where your glass is half full, not half empty, even in hard times, is really important. I know it's not easy, but I really think it makes a big difference. And of course, I think one of the things I'm emphasizing this again is that, be kind and inclusive. This is not a time to, be too competitive, all this hoarding of toilet paper, which I clearly don't understand, but and hoarding of other things. The guy that bought 17,000 Purell bottles or whatever because he thought he could get rich selling them. And of course, now he can't sell them on any site. So I don't know what he's going to do with them. But anyway, being inclusive, because we'll have to get through this together. Somebody asked me also, how hard will it be to raise money? And Excel, we're continuing on. We're going to have our first virtual meeting at the end of the month. That should be, who knows how it'll go, but we have somebody, entrepreneur who's going to present, and we have somebody for April. We have that all lined up because we don't want to stop talking to entrepreneurs and finding ways to fund them. However, that said, money will be tight. Raising money will be slower. People are trying to regroup. Obviously, the stock market is in a tank, but the stock market's been in a tank before. So what it does, in my experience from the past, is it slows down. It makes it harder, but there are these nuggets that come along. And then there are funds, they already have the money. The money's already committed. It's networks that I think are a little harder because people have to dig in their pocket. Funds who already have the money will do investing. They'll just be more careful because their investors will be questioning what they're doing. But it doesn't mean it won't happen. I just think it's going to be slower. And and how long it's going to take, obviously, I don't know. But I think this is a time to look for opportunities. And that's my last point. Have we done all the questions?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, Kimberly was asking you, I think you pretty much answered what her question was, but she was asking what your advice was for seed fundraising during this time. So she said that you covered it. So you're good.
Yeah, I mean, for seed, well, here's the thing. I would look and I would try to find a way to do it without money, right? I mean, in the short term, if you feel like you need money right now, I would look to see how else you might do something. And you'd be amazed at other ways there are. And I don't know what you're trying to do, but I think it'll just take time. And so you'd be better off spending time building your product or service or whatever it is you're doing in some creative way rather than spending time talking to investors who are preoccupied with their portfolio companies they already have, trying to keep them afloat and trying to keep their investors as happy as they can keep investors. Because remember, at the end of the day, these funds have to keep their investors happy. That's their first obligation. Wow. Was it so boring? You don't have any questions? Or was it so good?
So thorough.
What, honey?
You're so thorough.
Oh, yeah, right. Okay.
Hey, so by the way, the hand sanitizer guy, he ended up donating it all to charities. He had to donate.
Oh, good. That was smart. What are you going to do with 17,000 hand sanitizers or whatever he had?
It was brilliant until it wasn't.
Well, that's innovation. And that he was being innovative. He saw a problem, but what he did is he solved it. If he was going to find a way to create hand sanitizer and sell it, that would have been great. But to hoard it and then try to sell it was probably not a good idea.
Yeah, Jack says he was shamed into it, and then Sarah said he was ordered to do it by the Attorney General of Tennessee and Kentucky.
Oh, that's why. Oh, yeah. Rather than arrest him for whatever, who knows? Funny.
Barbara says she has a question coming.
Okay.
Oh, here it is. If you are a naturally reserved person, how can you advocate for a startup with more assertiveness?
So, um, I mean, you don't have, being reserved is okay. Um, if you have a startup that, you want people to know about, one of the things I would recommend, so like, for example, Karen Kilborn, who is my partner in crime on this, on empowering women, she's a virtual assistant and she's a social media queen. And she does things, she can do things that I have no clue how to do. And they're not in my wheelhouse, even though I'm not reserved. But you got to know what you got to know and where you should be doing it. So I think being reserved just means that, you don't want to be out there, and you don't have to be. When you go to raise money or you go to a customer, obviously you've got to take your deep breath, roll your shoulders back and make it happen. But there's nothing wrong with being reserved. Lots of entrepreneurs are reserved. Some of them are very, very shy and introverted. So if you can surround yourself with people who are not like you, who can do that role, you as the founder or CEO have to be able to answer all the questions about the company and what the vision and everything is, but promoting things does not have to be yours. And other people may want to comment on this.
All right. Well, we have another question at the moment from Kimberly, and she says, are you familiar with I Fund Women, and would you recommend that for a startup?
So I Fund Women is a crowdfunding company in New York. And I do know who they are. I've actually spent some time with them. I will tell you that while I'm a big fan of crowdfunding, I think right now crowdfunding, unless it's something that's going to serve to solve this problem we have now, I think it'll be hard to get crowdfunding money. And one of the things about crowdfunding is you've got to do great marketing. I mean, your ability to raise money in crowdfunding is only as good as your ability to market. And you need a great network to begin with, and you need to be able to get that network to work for you. So crowdfunding, it can seem simple, like GoFundMe, where somebody has some catastrophe and money flows in, or some Kickstarter where you've got a product or idea. That takes more work than you realize to put those things together. Now, I Fund Women has some training, and I think they have some videos that kind of talk about that. So before you spend the time doing that, I would take a look. And right now, I would say probably not a good idea, because people are taking money out of their pocket and everyone's feeling poor.
All right. Farnoosh was just commenting to Barbara. We're kind of backtracking a little bit about
That's okay.
being a naturally reserved person and being more assertive. And Farnoosh was just saying, Barbara, think about why you started your company and how much your work will impact the world for good, and how the funding is a non-negotiable to get you there if that's the case. And maybe that can be enough motivation to get your funding. Being reserved has, I believe, little to do with it. Make your argument super compelling.
Very wise.
Mm-hmm. Very wise.
Very wise.
Yes. All right. And then Cindy was asking about innovation, and she was asking if you saw any opportunities for new kinds of businesses or business.
I'm, the bad side about me is I always am looking for that. And, right now, I don't know what to make of any of this. I certainly see, and I'm not in the market to start anything right now. I'm in the market of working with entrepreneurs who have ideas and services and new businesses. But I know that we will see things that emerge. If you think about, just take the Purell you know, the hand sanitizer problem. We never thought we would need that. So you know what's going to happen. So now, for example, I think it's Louis Vuitton is now taking their perfume line off and they're creating hand sanitizers. A lot of distilleries are taking, I don't know if it's the waste or whatever from their distillery, and they're creating hand sanitizers. And the prisoners in New York are creating hand sanitizers and giving them away. So that's a case where innovation happened where you would least expect it. And that's what I mean. It's sort of be on the lookout, kind of see what you see. How did that come to be? Did it make sense at the time? A lot of things, you know, if you think, you guys, most of you weren't alive for the pet rock, but who would think you could put a rock in a box and give it as a gift and call it a pet rock? I mean, it was crazy, but they did very well till they didn't. It didn't have staying power. Or chia pet, what the hell? I mean, you know, stuff comes along and people, you know, come up with things. But I think in this era that we're in, we'll see things. I don't have any wisdom on that today, but you know, we can chat about that.
That's all the questions we have. Although Jack just said, if it's acceptable, I'd love to share my online platform for connection.
I'm sorry, what's the question? I'm sorry.
It's from Jack, and she said, if it's acceptable, I'd love to share my online platform for connection.
Okay, so do you want to, I'm sorry, do you want to share it with the people here today? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I think that's what she's saying.
So we'll have to, we don't share people's contact information because we don't, unless everybody, when we send out an email, we'll ask if people are comfortable with that. And we'll find a way to help you do that, Jack, because I think you have a great platform. I just can't give away people's contact without their permission.
She said, no worries. That's why she asked.
Good girl. Okay, so now I do have some work for you to do. We probably will be virtual again in April and probably in May. We still think we should do this, or you can tell me you hated it and you don't want to ever do it again. So we need you to tell us whether you like this format, you don't, what other formats would you like in this same vein? What would you know, what's the topics? Who might you want? And no, I can't get Michelle Obama, so don't even ask. And so I really, you can throw them out to us now. You can send them to us later. But I really do want to hear, because this is weird for me, because I am, you know, I can't see you, so I don't even know whether it's, you know, I get no body language, I get nothing. And so we're all going to have to sort of get used to that. And so what is it from an attendee standpoint that works for you? Because I have no clue right now. Anything?
All right, we're getting some feedback.
Okay.
This is the format right now from Kimberly. Heather says, this was my first EWT meeting and I loved it, all in caps. Hey, Robbie, she loved it.
That's lovely.
So, yes,
thank you.
Please let's keep the virtual format. And Fernu said, I loved that we did something instead of no meeting. It's not the same as in person. So my hope is that we are in a much better place in April to go back to in person. Kimberly says she loves it and it's safer right now. Arlie says, love it. Being rural, I have little opportunity to be involved in this type of thing. And Jack says, we're in a safe place and thank you for being brave enough to take the plunge. Ha.
You have no idea.
That was my ha. That was my ha, not her ha. Cindy says, use the video function so we can see each other. Barbara says, thank you, Robbie, for your insight and willingness to share personal experiences. You are a skilled mentor. So nobody says it sucked. So
okay, so that, and I appreciate that. So
yeah,
now that you didn't think it sucked, or you did think it sucked and you didn't want to say so, please don't be shy. But tell us what you think would be good the next time. And Cindy, in terms of sharing so that everybody can see each other, it gets complicated. And maybe, and if you're a Zoom queen, we will want to talk to you. Just because having people all talk over each other, and I guess I don't know why we can't. A lot of people must be on their phone because there are people that I can see. I can only see their pictures. but I can't because they're on their phones. So you only get videos if people are on their computers. Am I right, Karen?
No, you're not.
You
But
get your face, you get your live face if you're on your phone.
well, no,
You
I
can't
think
do
that's in the webinar format where you can see.
Oh, okay. Well, maybe we need to grow up. We'll see.
Yeah, you can mute and unmute. Yeah, Cindy says you can use Zoom with video and mute and unmute. But I think
Now I see a few people.
Yeah.
Woo!
Yeah, you can turn. We turned that all off. So
Yeah, so that would be helpful. Yeah, I mean that was good. I realized I felt like I was talking to myself, which I do a lot, but you know, I didn't think I was taking up your time while I was talking to myself. There's Cindy waving. Hi, Cindy. There's Christina. Hi, Christina. I can't see all of you, but anyway. So really seriously, you got to help me. You got to help us. We really want to know, even if it's weird, just tell us. You don't have to do it now. Karen will be reaching out. You know how to reach Karen. And we'll send the link to the video and we'll take it from there. Are we good? Thanks, guys. Stay safe and wash your hands.
Thank you.
All right. Bye.